you're learning new things. We're very lucky. We have 3 representatives from Libris here today. Veinstein, the president of Libris, is going to talk to us first, give us the company update, and then Oren, the Libris chief strategy officer, will do the product demonstration, followed by the traditional Q&A after that. And Dave Allen has heroically volunteered to chair the Q&A. So I'll pass over to Bar. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Is this working? I'm sorry. Usually people know me and knows that I have a loud voice and I can do it without the mic, but I've been talking the whole week, visiting customers, so kind of losing my voice. So I'll use this mic. I'm very, very pleased to be here. It's not my first time in Australia, but it is my first time in Adelaide. And I told Dave, I always, whenever I travel to Australia, I always remind myself, it's not an easy trip. And I always respect everyone in this room that travel to our events, Igloo, Luna, whatever, in Europe, US. It's a long trip. So I am quite pleased to be here. And it's, it's so nice. I had the chance to visit a few universities this week and libraries, and as part of my job, I do get to travel. I do about 70% of my time traveling, so I see a lot of libraries. I have not seen the amount of capacity that the way libraries in university in Australia have so many students, no seats available in the house. I think it's the case here for Adelaide as well, and this is the 4th or 5th library I've seen this week. Then it's like that. It's phenomenal. So, I mean, I know, people in other countries are talking about getting, students into the libraries. This is really phenomenal what, universities here in Australia managed to do. So kudos to everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about, Libris high level. I'm going to just, go over high level across the different products. As Megan said, Oren later going to talk a little bit more strategy. Specifically, we'll focus on Leganto and Explorer. I think most of you have heard about Explorer, but maybe have not seen. So we're actually going to have a demo for you guys to see. And then Anir, Sherwinter, and a few of us will be here also for Q&A session. I think many of you know me. Very thick skin. You can ask everything. I'm an Israeli that lived in New York for many years, so you cannot offend me even if you try. So really, we're here to, engage and get the tough questions, the easy questions as well. Happy to answer any questions you have, okay? Is this working? Nope. Okay, well, we'll try to do it this way. Okay. I won't spend too much time on this slide. It's just a couple of figures on where Libris is today. I think there are two interesting things I just want to point out. One, actually not even updated anymore, but we just passed 900 employees globally. I think you even know that we have here in Adelaide is one of our offices. Is this working now? So in general, for me, that's, again, I started back 8 years ago with Libris. We were less than 300 people, around 300 something, 400 people. And obviously the company has grown. And so probably maybe in 2 years we'll pass the 1,000 employees. And obviously for us, it's always not just about, R&D, but really about being in the markets. And I think, we've always, whenever we've gone to different countries, we've always made sure that we have local presence as well, because we really know that, yes, a lot of people do think globally today, but local presence is very, very important. We have offices here in Adelaide. We have about 8 or 9 people. We have an office in Melbourne, larger office, of course, together today with ProQuest. I think the other chart that I'm very, very proud of is the way the company has moved to being a cloud provider in the last 10 years. I joined the company in 2010. Alma was still on PowerPoint. It wasn't even called Alma back then. It's called URM or ERM, as we loved calling it back in then. It was funny. So, and you know, there are schools in Australia that were the first one that actually signed to have, you know, move to a cloud-based system 2.5 years before we actually had production. And again, this is again an attestment to, you know, the fact that Australian libraries and universities is forward thinkers and adopters, early adopters of technologies. And, you know, I think every product that we released since then, we've always gone through this process of coming to Australia as part of our development partnership, early adopter partnership. The same applies to Explorer, where besides US and UK, Australia is the third market where we are looking for partners to join early adopters. Again, you know, a year ahead of the product going into production. But so, you know, last year we ended up the year. This is new business. So 96% of our new business is cloud-based. We still have a lot of customers that are using our old on-premise system, but pretty much anyone today that is buying a solution from Libris is buying a cloud system. And you know, it's pretty amazing. You think about this transition of the industry. You know, I think libraries are, of course, is again, like many things in the past, are ahead of technology curves when it comes to adoption of technologies, and cloud being that. You know, back 8 years ago, we had a lot of customers asking us, do you plan to have Alma local, with the local installation? We actually had customers flying to Israel to try to convince us to develop, you know, Alma is a local service, local installation, on-premise system. So, you know, you'll be surprised, by the way, you will still have in some countries in Asia challenges there. But overall, we are, you know, all cloud-based, and those questions are very rare these days. You know, the transition in the market, you know, where we participate in made us very successful because we listened very carefully to what our customers are interested in and what are the challenges and pain points that really are facing, you know, university libraries, academic libraries are facing. And I think, you know, we also, what made us successful and very much believe in this is the fact that we are very much focused on, you know, academic libraries, state libraries, national libraries. We've decided many years already that this is where we want to stay in. And of course, we kept ourselves very close to what are the challenges that academic libraries are facing. And if you look at the transition or the type of products that we brought to market, I think it mirrors very well the kind of challenges you had and transition you've done within your own libraries, from, you know, managing just print to then, you know, managing electronic resources, then, you know, having to face, you know, Google coming into our space. And so looking at discovery and what can we do different than the OPEX. And this is, you know, back in the days where Primo and Summon came to play. And later on, you know, transition to a unified resource management, managing, you know, print, electronic, and digital with Alma. And in the last 3 to 4 years, we are continuing that transition, again, mirroring the same challenges and changes that the libraries are having or doing internally, starting to look in how that we can really focus services within the library to really approach and help within the mission statement, the core statement of the university, whether it's teaching and learning or research, depends on the institution, sometimes both. And this is where, you know, 3 years ago, we developed Leganto to really help the libraries come closer to, or get closer to teaching and learning. This is where we also bought Campus M, a company based in the UK that had developed a platform for mobile for the university, not just for the libraries. And this is where we're now expanding towards supporting research services that libraries want to offer with Explorer. So again, the evolution in our product is very much aligned with the evolutions of what our customers are doing within their libraries. And I think this is what have made us successful, because we stayed very closely connected to challenges and changes in mission statement and visions that academic libraries have had in the last 15 years. To do this, we've had to kind of also evolve internally and look at things in a little bit of a different way, and we'll talk about this. So this is a kind of slide that describes our value proposition, if you'd like, or the way we look into the solution that we provide to the market. And on the left here, it's library management, of course, that's a core for us. And then in the last year, 10 years, we've evolved towards providing discovery system, research. And the third pillar, if you'd like, is about students and learning. So these are, if you look at what we are trying today to offer in our market as a solution, these are the three pillars of solution that we are trying to bring to the market. And the important piece beneath this is there are the fact that we not only develop and grow the applications to address those business needs, but also over the last 10 years, we've evolved our cloud platform. And the reason is because as we've evolved and provided more and more solutions and started to expand, we really thought that we really need to avoid the mistakes that we as vendors and also even the industry made 15 years ago. And that is the fact that we've created a lot of silos when it comes to technologies in libraries. Remember, we all had ILS to manage print, and then we changed, our services changed, and we need to do more electronic, and we brought ERM system and lick resolver systems. And then we started shifting toward digital resources, so it's digital asset management systems. And I think the stories. This is the challenges that many libraries had in the past. By the way, again, outside of Australia, still many do have even today. So as we are starting to shift the focus of our services from those just traditional services to also, again, provide teaching and learning services or research support services, we really didn't want to get again to the same mistakes of, let's introduce another siloed system and another siloed system. And we'll talk about this. This is one of the key things that we are trying to resolve with Explorer because of the fact that there's already quite a lot of siloed system when it comes to supporting research and researchers. So for us, the focus was not just develop new business solution, but really also focus in the last few years, 10 years, about building the platform. So now when we want to add a new solution, and that Leganto was the first one, we are building it on the top of the cloud platform that we've established. Explorer is the same, okay? And in the future, each one of you in the room probably, hopefully will use Alma in the next, 10 years, 15 years. We're gonna have a new set of service, new set of challenges and mission statement and services that the library want to offer. We want to make sure that the investment that the library has done already in implementing a platform, a management platform for the library, can serve the new types of services that the library will have in 5 years and in 10 years without the need to install another separate system. This is good for both the vendors and the customers. For the vendors, it means that I can bring the solution to the market quicker. If you look at, Leganto was developed within 18 months. Explorer is the same thing. And for customers, it's really about much easier implementation and much lower total cost of ownership. For example, simple fact, I did Alma, and if anyone here has implemented Leganto, I did Alma. I did all the work already with integrating with student information system, authentication. Everything is done on the platform level. You don't have to replicate this when you implement Leganto. This is just one example. There's many other types of integration that, again, resides at the platform level, don't need to reside at the application level. So this is our direction. This is what we are doing and moving forward in the market. Again, both adopting and providing new set of solutions to address new set of business needs, but really much focusing on having a platform that can serve those business needs. The thing is, by the way, the interesting thing is that we didn't invent this. This is not something that Ex Libris invented or the library space invented. This is how technology, if you look at your student information system, your ERP system, your CRM system, this is the same directions that cloud services, technology services are going in other spaces as well. It does make sense. So this is kind of very high level of where, how we are going forward in our direction. If you look at those three pillars, you recognize the name of products that we have in each one of those pillars: Alma and Rosetta, Primo, Same, and Explorer. RefWorks and Pivot, I don't know if you're familiar with those. RefWorks is a citation manager, similar to maybe EndNote or the likes of those they're using. This is a product that was that ProQuest had, and we've brought it over to the Ex Libris portfolio. Pivot is a research funding grant database. Again, product that was owned by ProQuest, and it now fits into what we are planning to do with Explorer and research support. And I think Campus M is the mobile platform, and Leganto the reading list. So these are the three pillars that today we are basically again pushing forward in each one of them to develop a new type of solution and bring it to the market. I'm just gonna go quickly, like a slide on not all of them, but the big one, and kind of give you a bit of a flavor of where we're going in terms of a direction and our thought and thinking. I'll skip the numbers. So Alma, I think you all know this, roadmap is endless, right? Every month, new feature, if you go to Idea Exchange, there's, thousands of still requests, and I don't think it's ever gonna go less, I think, and we do like that. But just one thing I did want to, kind of mention in Alma is an interesting direction maybe some of you have started to hear that we are talking about, and we are going towards, and that is looking into new technologies such as AI, machine learning, and see how we can adopt that into Alma. And we kind of did a little bit of spin for us. AI is not just about artificial, it's actually about actionable intelligence. And specifically, we are looking into, I'm a techie, many of you are very techies, buzzwords come and go. You need to be careful about, not to run after the buzzwords if there's no substance technology, real technology there. We believe when it comes to right now machine learning AI, the technology that is mature enough is really to help us build what we call recommendation engines. Really look into the technology and use that to analyze data, and really use that as a recommendation engine that both we can create and our customers can use to create very smart analysis of, and again, look into actionable data, actionable intelligence within the system. So if I give you just one simple example, and this is print related, but we have examples from electronic related. I know in Australia it's really, but that slide, I didn't think about it when I put it. I should have put an electronic example, but let's use this for a second, and I'll give you understanding. I know many of you are moving away the books, right? Having space for the students. So take it to offsite storage. So a good, recommendation engine will be something in the system that can tell you, well, based on the activity that we see in the system, there are specific titles that are really on-demand titles, and actually you took them into offsite storage. They should be actually located in your on-demand location in the library, not in your offsite storage, again, because of the activity that we keep seeing comes and go. Again, it's just a simple example of an analysis that the system can do and kind of point it out as a recommendation for the staff. Another example, if you want here, if you're doing resource sharing and you have the rota of the partners that you participate with, the system can analyze this and see that it's not aligned, the rota is not aligned, and you really need to rebalance maybe the type of alignment you have between the partners they're using for the ILL. If you look, it's not on this slide. Another example of things that we were thinking about, again, just simple, but very interesting. You use sushi, you're trying to do cost analysis. One of the things you first need to do is actually collect and set up the sushi accounts and harvest the data so you can start, collecting the usage data and start using that for the analysis. Well, when we started looking at what our customer did and their data, we found out we have a lot of customers that actually didn't set all the sushi accounts that they have for the different available publishers. So very easily we could have seen that people had actually traffic or transactions coming through the link resolver and others from different publishers that do provide sushi information, but the library never actually stepped forward and actually set up those sushi accounts to harvest that data. So of course, if they don't harvest that usage data, they're not doing any analysis. So even the basic ability for the system to come and say, hey, we're just noticing that you have, you have a lot of transactions on your link resolver with certain publishers. Those publishers do provide sushi data, but we don't see you setting up any harvesting of that data into those counter data into your system. Should I help you should I guide you through the setup of that in the system? So this is just few examples of things that came from customers that asked us to really, start building into, smart analysis in the system and engine. And the way we are building this, we actually also plan to build it in a way that will allow you to create the what if analysis rules. So it's not going to be just, out of the box template, but really also allowing you to create your own analytical intelligence, what if analysis to investigate things that we didn't necessarily think of, doing. Okay. So this is a direction we're going. We're actually already in development stages for this. We're talking to different customers. You'll see starting coming from us in 2018 and 19, starting to see stuff like this. Again, I think, I'm not going to dive into other roadmap with Alma. I think, it's all published and about this. But there's, I think that was an interesting thing that I don't know if most of you have heard of, have seen from us and you see doing. I won't present here, but we have, we talked about this also in the actually director forum. We do have some ideas and thoughts what to do also when it comes to the discovery side, when it comes to AI, machine learning on the discovery side. It's a little bit more in the early stages of thoughts, but definitely a place where we are thinking about what can we do on the discovery side with machine learning as well. When it comes to discovery, who has Primo in the room? Almost majority. Who has Summon? Handful. Okay. Okay. Hopefully in the future will be more. So first of all, I think now after 2.5 years, finally, I think we're getting less of a question. Are you going to keep discovery? With Summon available. We are. Okay. I think, many of you that work with us in the past, that you will not find the term end of support in Ex Libris philosophy, policies, documentation, and there's a simple reason for that. And people sometimes, don't believe us, and let me give you the simple answer as the vendor or someone in that vendor position. We have about 7,000 customers today globally, more than 7,000. We have 1,200 Almas. So obviously we have a lot of more customers that, we are implementing about 400 institutions a year right now. That's, it's kind of growing more from year to year, but still it's not thousands. So imagine if I had now 5,000 customers coming to me and say, I want to implement Alma and change my discovery. We will not be able to handle it, right? So for me as a vendor, actually, it's very important that I have, a life cycle is aligned very well with what customers want to do with their own life cycle. Each customer, some early adopters, everyone more in this room than in other rooms that we're visiting, each one has their life cycle of when they change technologies and things in the library. And it fits very well of what my capacity as a vendor is. So that's why it's important for us to keep on having the more older products available, supported, developed, so customer are comfortable to go about, their change in change management according to their cycle and not according to a vendor cycle. I can tell you, by the way, it's something that I think it's quite unique to Libris. I came from a different industry, not from the library industry, and that was one of my first questions is coming. I was asked to lead Alma in the early days, and I came and I received the team that worked on Aleph and Voyager. And I went to Mati and I said, hold on, what's my end of life policy for Aleph and Voyager? That was, because in other industries, it's very common to have that end of life policy or life cycle policy. And Mati told me no such thing in our space or as a company. And it took me a while to understand it, but I absolutely cherish it and understand it. And I think it's very important and very successful on both sides. But when we do support other products, and we have 2 products in one space, for example, in discovery, it doesn't mean that we don't want to be more efficient in the organization, and we are. So we took the R&D teams and put it together under the same management. So when people think about new features for Summon, they also think about new features for Primo and vice versa. And even more importantly, when it comes to the data, content data, we had in the past 2 teams. We had a team that's working on knowledge bases and indexes on Summon or 360 side and one on Libris. And they were doing a very similar job working with all the publishers, getting their content, harvesting this. And so we aligned the team, we put them together, and now there's only one voice from Libris going into the publishers. Once they get the data, they do ingest it into different platforms, but the ingest act is the easier one. That's not the challenge when dealing with content. Content is about publisher and negotiate and working with the publishers. This is where we had the massive work. And by aligning this, we actually created a larger team. We have more than 80 people now doing content in the organization. So now we have a larger team doing this, a single task or single voice with more publisher that allows us to do more. Versus less when we had 2 separate teams doing the same things. So again, creating that efficiency is what is important for us when it comes to, for example, the content and Primo and Summon. So since most of you are on Primo, so I hope by now that you heard about Primo VE. How many of you heard about Primo VE? How many of you want to have Primo VE? Not enough. I'm surprised. Okay, so either you don't know enough about Primo VE, or I'm kind of totally surprised because, I just came in Luna. We had a Luna, the annual user conference in the US, and we had a room about 100 and something people working, seeing Primo, and everyone wanted to have it. Couple of things very important that Primo VE will bring. We really focus a lot on simplifying the processes. Back office is going away from Primo as a management tool that is very dedicated for Primo. It's been going into Alma, part of Alma, but again, we just move it as is. We really focused a lot on simplification there, because I think you all know that Primo is great when it comes to flexibility, but it also had this. It's very flexible, hence it's very complex. And we were trying to break that connection. We wanted to be still very flexible, but not as complex. So we really simplified this. So from administration perspective, much simpler. One of the reasons, because we actually were able to take away, by putting on the Alma platform, take away the whole process of pipes, publishing, and all that. That was obviously, I think, not the easy part, one of the easy parts of Primo. So not only did we reduce the administration and everything that has to do with the activity, but also we gained something very important that I can tell you every user out there loves. I'm not talking about necessarily us managing the system, but the actual, whether it's faculty and other patron, and that's the real time. Okay. This is, when it's available and it works on top of Alma. Primo VE works on top of Alma. Updates on Alma within almost real time, up to 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes are already updated in Primo, in the discovery. You don't have to publish. You don't have to do everything around this. It just appears. Again, obviously creates a very, very different experience for users in many aspects. I'm sure we'll make a lot of librarians very happy as well. But I think, again, what we hear from customers is that, they like a lot of people like discovery. A lot of people didn't like that we lost capabilities that OPAC had that were good capabilities, such as the real time. So I think that will bring back a lot of very good experience for different users, especially those advanced users. And I know, again, especially when we're also working with an environment where you have Leganto and course material and things that you do in the backend in Alma, very much people today, our users don't like to even wait 24 hours for the refresh. So how many of you didn't know about those two elements about Primo V? You didn't know about that. So we need to do more training. But so I think every one of you will be very happy with Primo V. So I kind of expect everyone to raise your hand. The way we're launching it, we started by actually having every new account that is implemented this year with Alma and Primo going already with Primo V. And now starting in the middle of the year, we are starting to allow existing customers that have Primo installed with Alma to start migrating to Primo V. Is there someone with Primo V in the room? There's a few of you. You came as, you worked with Primo in the past? Or is that the first time that you worked? First time, so you don't have the experience. You worked with both?
We have total kids and never had that.
Okay, and what do you think of probably?
Having some control over our
Okay. So this is another good thing. Thank you for mentioning it. I don't know if there's other customers here. We had that flavor of total care where it was really Libris did the heavy lifting on the back end of Primo for customers that decided to go this way. Again, Primo V, because it is simpler. We felt it's very easy. How are we doing on time? Ooh. I'm gonna run quickly, but anyway, Primo V, you should get it. Trust me, you'll be happy. You should. Yeah, trust me. I'm very objective when it comes to those kind of statements, right? All right, I'll jump. Summon, continue to develop. Actually, we have more features and bigger size team working on Summon. For the folks in the back, if you're interested, I'll come later and we can talk about this. RefWorks. Just one word about RefWorks. So I don't know, is anyone here in the room using RefWorks? Okay. We had some challenges. The product had some challenges. There was changes in the development, product management. I think it came to a nice and good home under Libris. We are not only focusing on making sure that the roadmap is there. We moved to monthly releases, really start pushing the product similar to the way we are doing releases in Libris, but really also starting to look how this can fit much better into our product in general, because this is where staff, patrons, students do a lot of work. This is their citation. This is where they keep this. And today, not just with RefWorks, but also with other citation management, it's not as strongly connected to other systems that the library has. And we think there's a lot of value there. For example, why shouldn't we look into, for example, the eShelf in Primo? Can it be connected or be unified with the citation management? And instead of having, a place in Primo where you save those items or your service saves or searches, obviously if you have also citation management, it's very, very natural for that information to be there. So we are looking into how we can use that across the products and getting much closer and more personalized service to the end users. So you should see some stuff coming from us on this in the future. Explorer, I'm gonna let Oren talk about it. I'll jump forward. Campus M. Anyone here have Campus M? Okay. So I think you've seen, we've started to be more successful also in Australia and other countries as well. very important for us, and this is kind of aligned with our thought of and our philosophy. When people like yourself came into us in the past and said, you know, you really need to have a mobile app for discovery, for Alma, for others. And initially, our initial reaction was, okay, let's develop it. And then we went and talked to universities and libraries, and we said, actually, that's probably not the right thing to do. Because if you go to a lot of universities, you see universities with 5, 6, 12 apps, whereas a lot of apps in the university, you know, the library has an app, the schools have an app, everyone has an app. We said, we don't want to create another silo, but creating another app just for the library. But we want to make sure that the library is well represented within the app of the university. So we went and we looked for a company that provide platform, okay, to create mobile app. And that's what Campus M is. So again, thinking of helping the library be more strategic within the institution. Leganto, I think you've seen, again, very much aligned with what we want to do, getting closer to teaching and learning. I think it is about 15 already of them in Australia and about 85 worldwide. Again, Oren will talk about this. I'll circle back. So I kind of gave a little thing about each one of the product. Let me circle back again. To be able to do so many products, one of the things you might think, and to talk about the platform, the one thing that maybe you are thinking and you don't want to say to me is like, should I put all my eggs in that basket, an Libris basket, right? I mean, how many of our solution I want to be in one vendor? Well, to be able to do this, when we do the app platform, we need to focus also on the openness, okay? Because the only way you will trust us, you know, to bring a platform is to have openness. Are you familiar with our statistics? If you go to our website, you'll see a portal for API. 2018 is going to be the first year where we're going to pass 1 billion API transaction going into Alma platform worldwide. This is 68% of transaction to Alma, more transaction than the staff doing with Alma. And we're not going to stop here. When we talk about platform, we're going to actually, our direction in the future is to allow openness for other, whether the libraries or other vendors, to work and develop on the platform, because this is what will allow us, again, to expand and gain your trust that, you know, yes, you're going into Libris platform and solution, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you are locked down and it's only a single vendor approach. We're going to focus about this and continue to focus about this in the future. I've jumped quickly. This is my last slide. Thank you, Megan. I don't need to tell you, I think one of the things that really is, I think, is quite special about this community is how we work very closely together. We cherish this, and I can tell you this is not something that is, you know, for someone that came from outside or for the space, but even in our space, the way we work closely together, the way the user community is so active is quite unique, and we really cherish this. And, you know, everything that we're trying to do with our products is always connected to our customers. So I really appreciate your feedback, your voices. Sometimes those are loud voices, but it's okay. And hopefully you'll continue to do that, and we'll promise to continue to listen, not to everything, but as much as we can. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bar. It's one of the real strengths, I think, of Libris is the vision that you're always able to bring to the development of your products, and it does set you apart in some ways. I think we've got Oren now, who's going to give us some product demonstration.
Can you hear me now? All right, yeah. So there's so little to talk and so much time, or the other way around. If there's one thing I'm certain about is that I won't be able to do everything that I planned, and I'll be late even in that. But I'll do my best to kind of cover, a few main points. And I'm going to skip slides because we have until 3? Oh, 3:15, okay. Yeah, so hi, my name is Oren. Very pleased to be here. I gained a few minutes so I can introduce myself. Yeah, this is fantastic. I think I've seen the group, it's been 2 years ago, just very briefly, but yeah, this is a great pleasure. I want to focus on Esploro and talk a little bit about what we're doing and how we're doing this, and show you a glimpse of a demo. It's a canned environment that we've created that represents our vision and some of the work that we're doing. Hopefully there will be enough time for questions within the session, but there is also a Q&A session after that. So you're certainly, hopefully you'll ask questions. So just the context of Esploro, and I think Masoud, did you give your talk yet? Okay, yeah. So if you haven't heard the news, back in February, I believe, we announced the fact that we're working with 5 development partners in building a new category, really, a new service category that we refer to as Research Services Platform, together with 5 partners. So Lancaster University, Sheffield University from the UK, and University of Miami, Iowa, and Oklahoma University in the United States. We're building this together. So this is really in response to a growing need, I think urgency as well, to curate, manage, disseminate information about research outputs, data, activities at an institutional level in order to promote the visibility, the impact, and compliance of research and research activities. There's been a lot of talk around this in the industry, and we don't have a lot of time, so I certainly won't get into kind of the main drivers around that. And I believe that most of you are very aware and very involved in this already. There was a report that came out, I think around October or November last year. A group of people, including a few in the community here, I believe La Trobe, ANU, perhaps another university, Monash, David Groenewegen, I think, was involved in that, in putting together a report, and it's worth reading. It may be kind of an introduction that you already know, but I think it does give some perspective on, the roles and why there is some follow-up reports coming from the OCLC research team, but definitely doing studies in the way that libraries approach that space. So this is really the context of us coming into this and realizing that there is really an opportunity, and certainly there is a need. We began that work, but I want to say, there were several iterations, discussions started a few years back, but in earnest, we started discussions with the community about, let's say about a year and a half ago. We went out and talked to dozens of institutions around the world, just interviewing and kind of getting a sense of what they're doing, what are the pain points, what are the dynamics, what are the trends. We gathered a lot of information. It was an extremely useful and helpful learning experience for us that really helped us develop the concept around what is missing and what are the opportunities. And then, as I said, we started working with development partners. So I really want to skip some of the kind of the background of what's the problem, and why we're doing this, and kind of focus more concretely on what we're planning and what I think is unique about Esploro. And by this, talk a little bit more about the pain point. But when you look at the space of supporting research, whether supporting research data and some other activities, open access mandates, etc., assessment, we're seeing four environments and 4 environments of technologies and solutions around this space. There's these institutional repositories, been around for many years. A lot of them are on-prem, definitely a huge footprint of open source. These are typically used, not exclusively, and many of you will probably say, not in our institution, but typically this is around more of the publication and preprint, author copy type of an institutional repository. But then with a growing kind of recognition of the importance of data, as well as the emerging mandates and policies and requirements, we've seen also development of research data apparatus around managing the actual data assets. A lot of times these are separate technologies and separate solutions. In some cases not, but a lot of times it is. Then there's a third intersecting circle of CRIS systems. Those are really driven more by the kind of the dissemination, the outputs, the assessment, the reporting part of the research outputs. And then I just want to point out that there is a fourth circle, which is more in the administration of the grant management, the administration of research projects. This is on the admin side, most always led by research administration offices. This is, kind of the financial monitoring and the IRBs and, other compliance and, and project planning and things of that nature. So 4 circles, and those circles intersect, perhaps more than the way that we kind of intersect them in this graphics. For sure, when you think about data and publication and the linkage between them, of course, CRIS systems are all fed by information that is gathered in those repositories. And there's also a certain degree of intersection between this element of research administration because, things like grant, funding opportunities feed into that cycle as well. Lots of intersecting circles here, lots of activities. So this is a slide that Carl Grant from Oklahoma University presented in one of our recent meetings that represents what they're doing today. By no means we can claim that, and I'm quite sure it's true for everybody here, that you don't do anything. In fact, most of you do a lot of things. Oklahoma University have all those systems trying to address those circles that I pointed out, in the realm of publication and IRs and research data, lots of systems, on-prem, in the cloud, different technologies, different vendors, lots of transfers of responsibilities, files, data, lots of normalization going from one side to the other. This is pretty messy, hard, lots of duplicative processes, lots of gaps. This is not an ideal situation by no means. And, certainly one of the biggest pain points that we heard when we talked to institutions is that there are too many point solutions and too little integration. This is not a unique case. This is an example from University of Miami, and I specifically want to use those North American institutions. Maybe Masood will talk tomorrow more about, the situation in the UK, perhaps, but and the situations in your institution. So, perhaps different logos, but more or less the same problem. Too many systems, too little interaction. Even sometimes same systems from the same, different systems from the same vendor don't talk to each other very well. Part of the problem is not just negligence. Part of the problem is because it's hard. It's really hard. These reflect different life, cycles. Some of those were introduced 5 years after others. I know that in this, in Australia, particularly, the funding structure kind of brought about IRs, and then years later, research data management components. So those created kind of different technologies, different data models. And the short of this is not an ideal situation. This is one of the big things that we want to kind of address in Esploro. But the point I would like to make is that it's not just that it doesn't look nice on the wall. I mean, there are pain points here that really translate to a subpar solution in many cases. And I'll just do this quickly. What we heard when we talked to institutions, what we heard from many of you is the different stakeholders, each one of pain points from this kind of messy environment. For researchers, And let me start with researchers, because really, I mean, if we're going to create a solution that doesn't address the needs of researchers, we're probably not doing the right thing. For researchers, a lot of what we heard is, you know, what's in it for me? You know, what do I get out of this? You know, one of the things, you know, there is compliance, certainly, and, you know, some of them in some regions, in the UK, perhaps more than here, certainly more than in the US. They're more aware of that. They understand why they should do, for example, deposits into open access repositories. But the overall, you know, environment is way too complex and, you know, with little return for many of them. Research office, provost office, whatever is the relevant office, a lot of times, you know, we are hearing the question of, you know, how can we find out what's going on? A comprehensive view. And I want to emphasize a comprehensive view of what's going on in my institution in terms of research outputs. You know, how do I compare to others? Where should I invest more? You know, where can I get talent to address that? Is an important question for administration. And I think that one of the areas where, you know, we felt that there is a big need is that when you look back, I won't flip back, but when you look back on the type of solutions that are particularly active in the CRIS space, a lot of them are very science, STEM focused. That leaves out, you know, big disciplines outside of the realm of, not totally outside, but I think with less focus. So when I say comprehensive, I also mean across disciplines. And for libraries, you know, a lot of times libraries own some parts, you know, and in different institutions we'll find different mix of ownership. You know, some are IRs and research data, some are also doing CRIS, you know, lots of different variations there. But librarians are typically involved in at least a number of those systems, and they feel the pain of dealing with number of systems, doing a lot of manual work, using, I would say, subpar tools to do really important tasks like metadata enhancement of research objects and research assets. There's a mismatch between the priority, the importance of, you know, managing data about research and research data properly, and the tools that are used in this ecosystem that I presented before. And all this has impact, and the impact is on the ability to, you know, create visibility to those research outputs, reusability when relevant, do it in a proper way in terms of rights management and access management, do it efficiently and do it in a compliant way. So that's kind of the situation that we gathered from our studies and from reading, and that led us to build a different solution. And Esploro is really aimed at maximizing the impact of institutional research, the investment in institutional research, the activity around research, with a comprehensive curation and showcasing of those research activities and research assets. And sometimes we use the term research assets as kind of a broader term, or research objects. And we had some debate and, you know, discussions within the development partner group. What are the right terms for this? But this is really to capture not just publications and not just data sets and not just creative works, and, you know, but everything. But doing all this by leveraging skills, expertise, and technology in the library. And that is really an important point, that we're going to mobilize and utilize and leverage some of the infrastructure components that we've built for years. For example, you know, professional grade metadata management system that can do, you know, work beyond the books and the journals, take it to research assets and research objects and use it, you know, in a scalable fashion, in a comprehensive fashion. So this is the mission statement for Esploro. Now, how do we do that? There are really two main components for Esploro. And again, I'll try to be quick. I have until 3:15? Yeah, 15, okay, yeah. So really quickly, just to give you kind of the sense of what Esploro is set to do. So the first part of Esploro, two parts. The first part, we're redefining, you know, component that we refer to as research repository. And we redefine it because we're trying to do things a little bit differently. First of all, we want to model it, and we build a data model and services around it so that this research repository will be available to all the different research assets. And I'll get to what are those research assets in the moment, but it's not just publication, it's also data, it's also code, it's also activities related to research projects and etc. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but no longer different data models for data and publication in two different environments, one in cloud, one on premise, two different systems, two different vendors. It's all one. Research is important enough for us to, in 2018, to model a repository accordingly. We know that in order for us to start developing overlay services, like dissemination, discovery, reporting, assessment, we'll get to it in a moment, we need to have really, really good metadata. We need to know as much as we can about the objects. We need to have persistent identifiers. We need to create links between those objects because publication needs to be connected to data sets and vice versa. And when you get an award for a research project, you want to connect it to the publication of that research and to other people who you worked with on that project and to the funder. You want to create that network of information, and you have to base it on the right data model, but you also have to have the right metadata. And getting the right metadata through, again, a professional process of curation and enrichment of metadata using proper tools is a big piece of what Esploro offers. And then we also know that in order to populate such a research repository, it's not enough just to send an email to researchers and ask them, please deposit. Because one thing we do know about researchers is that they really care about themselves and about their research and about their publications and about their reputation and age index and all that stuff, right? We also know about researchers that a lot of times, they may be, part of University of Adelaide, but if I'm a social scientist and, if I'm a political scientist, I would probably work, and feel affiliation more closely to other political scientists. Some of them may be in Lancaster, for all we know. Rather perhaps with the chemists in Adelaide. And therefore, they're doing their own thing. We shouldn't rely in populating this next-gen repository, research repository, only on direct deposit. We need to build other mechanisms. One of, I think, the quite unique mechanism that we introduce in Esploro, and I'll talk more about this, is what we call automated capture or external capture, where we go out and find the, if you will, the footprint of research activities externally. Obviously in published content, where they publish their stuff, but also in data repositories, perhaps subject repositories, perhaps other environments where they actually work. So what Esploro assumes is that we'll probably won't be able to change behaviors of researchers soon enough. Therefore, we need to go and chase their ghosts, wherever they are, and try and capture that information and bring it in a more automated fashion into the research repository. And I'll try to touch on this also in the demo. But we're not building a research repository just for archival purposes, just to store stuff, although we sometimes like to do that. No, this is intended, in the way that we build it, with enriched metadata, with proper data model, with linkage and all that stuff, so that we can start do things like discovery, reusability when appropriate, metrics and assessment. You're all working in frameworks of national assessments like the ERA and the REF in the UK, and New Zealand has, forget the acronym, but I know it exists. And you may have institutional assessment that is going on, and these are the type of outputs that you want that system to produce. And we believe that without building this part properly, it's really, really hard to do this part properly. So that's what Esploro is set to do, all in a unified environment, in the cloud, in a multi-tenancy environment, so that we can start building relationship between institutions, benchmark, sharing. We won't get to this today, but this is part of the vision here. So just very, very quickly, just a point about the type of data that goes into the research repositories. Obviously publications, different sorts, the preprint, the postprint, depending on where you get them from, when you get them what's the rights for them, et cetera, et cetera. This is obvious. Research data, this is a very broad and wide term. It includes all the things that you think should be included there, I hope. Data sets, tabular data, experimental observations, transcripts of interviews, surveys, audio visuals, moving images, all that stuff. Either created by the research or fed into the research. So research data is a big part of it. But 2 points that I just want to quickly make. Creative works. This is really a category that we learned about as we were starting the work with the development partners. And it was pointed out to us, what I mentioned earlier, that current systems have a big focus on STEM. Some focus on social sciences in some areas more than others. But there are whole disciplines that are really not served very well today. Humanities is one of them, arts. But also some of the creative works that are created. So for example, take for example sketches, architectural sketches. Take for example performing arts. A lot of them are not really at least not in the core of some of those systems. So we're working towards building, again, and it's all modeled in the data model, the ability to include them as proper, first degree citizens of, what's regarded as research assets. The other point I would like to make is, as in Chris systems, because, we're building here a research repository for a purpose, we also collect activities, news mentioning, media mentioning, for example, about projects, awards, patents, and things like that. So that's really the scope. And what's really, really important for me to emphasize again, all these type of materials go into, the research, what we believe is next-gen research repository, and goes through the same stringent, comprehensive flow of curation, including metadata curation, with metadata enrichment, with identifiers, all that stuff. So, this is what makes this system, I think, quite unique and different than others. I'll skip that. This is more about the type of content that we're ingesting into the system. Just another visual of the framework of what Esploro is. So at the heart is that research repository, the different types of inputs, of assets. We talked about the metadata curation and enrichment. And just a quick point again about how do we get information in there. Obviously, direct deposit, I'll show you an example, in a demo. Researcher can go in and deposit. But even that, we try to do a little bit differently. We're trying to aid, to guide that deposit, because what we know is that researchers and metadata are two different worlds. When you ask them, please enter your metadata, keyword, they don't do that. And they don't understand, in fact, what we want from them. So a lot more guided, a lot more automated, things pushed to them instead of having them pull things. And, this is really a different approach to direct deposit. Mediated deposit, you can submit it to, for example, librarian. A lot of the direct deposits can be, funneled through the library. So the librarian, and I'll show you that, can actually look at what was deposited and approve, not approve, or try to help by enhancing metadata. But in addition to all this, also automated capture. So, this is where we go out to remote repositories like subject repositories. We use Summon and Primo indices to allocate and identify research activities and outputs in the big universe, pull them into the system. We do that not for fun. We do this because we want to create outputs. One of them is research profiles. I'll show you an example of that. Analytics and reports, a bunch of discovery portals, for different stakeholders. And as Bar said before, all this is open. Everything that you'll see is based on, APIs that can be exposed externally. So this really has to do with the fact that we are building this on the ALMA platform and what we refer to a higher education platform. And we really benefit here from, we don't need to reproduce metadata management, apparatus. It's all there and available to us. We need to further develop it to address the unique needs of research data. So we do all this, to enable libraries to use those tools in context of managing research. So, lots of integrations, with different products. I won't get to this, and lots of APIs. Let me just jump, for the remainder of this, and just say give you some, I'll need to switch computers here. This is still very early on. And yeah, thanks. So, this is really just, first or second cut of